Welcome to part 6 of the Digital Dynamics Studio walkthrough tutorial. This is the last part of the tutorial. If you remember from part 5, we talked about all of the visualization parameters and what they all mean and how you can create interesting visualizations within the studio. So in this part 6, it's the last part. If you want, you can create an MPEG movie of your animation that you can download and share it with others. There's lots of things you can do with a movie. You can show it to others. You can use it within a presentation. Maybe it's a result of a homework assignment that you're going to give to your teacher. You could create several MPEG movies of different things and edit them and incorporate them into a larger movie, and maybe use that in a presentation or on the web. So there's lots of things you can do with recorded animation that you can make from the Digital Dynamics Studio of your simulation results. Before we begin, we want to just mention that this feature is not always supported on all browsers and all platforms. You can see the movie creation icon is down here in the simulation controls on the bottom left. And if it's currently not available on your platform, it will be crossed out. And, browsers, sometimes they don't support all the features that we need to be able to do the recording, or the platform doesn't support everything we need for some reason. And if that's the case, it'll be crossed out. But most browsers and most platforms do support this feature. As far as we know, the only browser and platform that does not support movie making is the iPad using Safari. So we know that is not available on that platform, but it is available on most platforms. So if it's not supported, just use a different system, a different notebook, or a different browser, and most likely it'll be supported on that platform. And secondly, you can't create a movie while the simulation is being carried out. Right now we have as you can see in the timeline, we have 2,000 frames computed, and we want to create an animation of that. If the simulation is not running, you can tell by the icon here, the person is just standing. So you can only make a movie when the simulation is not running. We have a bunch of frames recorded, and you're ready to go to create your animation. So that's the state we're in right now. We have a bunch of frames computed, and we want to record our results into an MPEG movie. So the first thing to do is basically what's going to happen. It's going to record what it sees on the screen. It's going to capture that at every frame, save all those images, process them, and make the movie from those images. So you want to set within your display exactly what you want recorded in your animation. So right now we're seeing velocity vectors for this animation. Let's see, I want to look at regular particles. Let me increase the number to like 25 rows of regular particle traces, and I'm going to set the width to 0.5. We talked about this in the previous part 5 tutorial, so if you're not familiar with these parameters, go back and watch that video. And we're going to have vorticity on that display as well. So let's play it back a bit and just see what it looks like. Yeah, so that's a very nice visualization. We want to record this in our movie. So we had the visualization parameters set the way we want. Let's zoom out here a bit. And again, since it's going to record the screen, two things. Number one, if the resolution of their movie is going to match the current resolution of your browser, the workspace here. So if possible, make the window as big as it can be on your desktop, because that'll just increase the resolution of your movie. So that's one thing to be aware of, and it's going to record the current view. You can see I can move the cylinder around, I can zoom in and out. So you want to kind of zoom in and out and move it around so you get a nice, pleasing view. It's centered properly. To help with that centering, you can see as I move it around, there's a crosshatch down the middle of your display. You can see there's a horizontal and vertical line. That's the center of the image of the movie that's going to be recorded. So in this case, I want to center my cylinder right on that line so that I know it'll be right in the middle of my video, somewhere over here on the left. Another thing to look at, if you look at the corners, when I do that, when I move the mouse around, there's little triangles drawn in the corner. Those are my high definition aspect ratio markers. So those mark the high definition 16 by 9 aspect ratio, which matches a high definition resolution. And that's an option when you make the movie. You can tell it to enforce that aspect ratio when you make the movie. And if I did enable that, the little areas above and below those markers will be cropped off in my final movie. If you don't enable that, the entire, area of the workspace will be recorded. But those are just helpful markers so you know what the high definition aspect ratio, the 16:9 aspect ratio is, if you're going to use that option when recording. So this is a nice view. I got my visualization parameters all set. This the view is centered within the middle of the display. One of the things to note is the time curves. We talked about those again in the previous part 5 of the tutorial. This is showing the forces in the X and the Y, the drag and the lift forces over time for my simulation. And if the time curves are visible when you create the movie, they will exist in your MPEG movie that it creates. If they're not here, then they will not be in your movie. Just for fun, let's leave it on and record that along with our movie. So I'm going to leave that on so we can see the time curves as part of our MPEG movie that we're going to export. So let's leave that there. So everything looks good, pretty much the way we want it to be. The next step is to go ahead and record this setup as an MPEG movie. So to do that, you go down here and, of course, click on the movie button and bring up the dialog. And there's a bunch of parameters in here. Let me quickly go over those one by one. The first one is the frames per second. That's the recording rate in the final MPEG movie. It's going to record every frame, but this is the rate of playback in the final MPEG movie. 60 frames per second. Here we got 2,000 frames total. So at 60 frames per second, the movie will last 33 seconds in total. At 45 frames per second, the movie will last 44 seconds in total, roughly. 30 frames per second, the movie of 2,000 frames will last about 67 seconds. So it's really how fast it's going to play back when you play your MPEG movie after you've created it. Let's just choose 45 for this demo here. The second value is the resolution. Like I said before, it's going to record your workspace, your screen here. So the resolution of the movie is going to match the resolution of your window here. That's why, number one, you want the window as big as possible if you want a high-resolution movie. So you can set that here. Natively, this window is 1618 pixels wide. That's why it says native. So it would record everything, but you can tell it's a downsample to a different width in number of pixels if you wanted to. If you want to create the movie and then have it downsample to 800 pixels wide, you can choose those options. But for this animation, we'll do the full resolution of our window here, 1618 pixels in the width. In the middle here is our frame range. By default, it's going to record everything from frame 1 all the way to the end, frame 2000. But if for some reason you wanted to start the recording at a later frame number or end the recording before frame 2000, you can adjust these sliders here and adjust the range of frames that it's going to record for your movie. For this demo, let's just go up to 1,000. We want to run a little faster, so let's just record up from frame 1 to 1,000 in our demo video. The next button, we briefly mentioned this before, is the Enforce HD aspect ratio. If that's enabled, then, like I said, it's going to enforce the final movie to fit within that 16:9 aspect ratio, which is the high definition aspect ratio. And you saw those markers before on the screen. When you move things around, that just tells you what area is going to be recorded if you use that option and make this movie. For this, let's disable that. Let's record everything, the entire view in our movie. The final option here on the right is our frame step. Frame step of 1 records every frame, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so forth. But for some reason, if you wanted to record every other frame or every third frame, you can set that option here by increasing or decreasing that value. For example, if you did every third frame, it'll record frame 1, frame 3, frame 6, frame 9, frame 12, and so forth. In the end, your animation, your results will play back faster in the movie than if you played every frame. Of course, for this demo, we'll just do every frame. So we reviewed all of our parameters, the way we want them to be. The view is all set up and ready to go. But before we actually push the record button, let me briefly talk about what's going to happen when we do that. There are basically 2 stages to the movie recording. In the first stage, you'll see the Digital Dynamics Studio is going to run through all the frames. It's going to play back all the frames from, in this case, frame 1 to frame 1,000. And when it does that, it's going to update the display, then it's going to recapture that image and record it and store it in the background. So basically, it's going to record an image for each frame and store it internally. That's the first part. And the second part is you'll see this progress bar start to advance. And basically, that's the processing of the MPEG movie itself. It's going to take all of the frames and it's going to convert them into an actual MPEG movie. And to do the whole process could take anywhere between 20, 30 seconds to a couple of minutes if you're recording a lot of frames at a high resolution. Um, so that's what's going to happen when you push the record button. So the next step is go ahead and record our movie here. So let's do that. So let's push the record button and there it goes. So it's running through all of the frames of our simulation, and in the background it's capturing each of these images and storing it internally. So we'll let that process happen. You can see it's around frame 400 now, 500. We'll just let that finish. Remember, it's going to go up to frame 1000. So it finished, it got up to frame 1000, and now what you can see, the progress bar is moving. It's processing those frames, it's converting them into an actual MPEG movie file. So again, we'll just let that process finish. But at this point, the movie's done. It's created and ready to be downloaded. You can see that this link here has changed. Save generate movie. So now to download the movie onto my desktop, all I have to do is push that button to download it, say where to store it. What's that? And you might not have seen it in the recording of the tutorial. It doesn't show these pop-up dialogues, but it downloaded the movie and saved it to my desktop. And we'll show the video in the tutorial right here. We'll patch it in there and you can see what the actual reporting was. So the next step would be you close the dialog, of course. And if you want, you could change the visualization parameters around. Let's say I wanted to make a movie of velocity vectors. I can change that around and create another movie. Go back here and hit record again and record, in this case, velocity vectors. So you can do this as many times as you want, record anything you want on the screen, any kind of visualization parameters that you might want to record, just by doing this process over and over again. So that's pretty much it for movie making. Hopefully it's an easy process. And again, you can take that MPEG movie and share it with your friends or incorporate it into a presentation or a report or do anything else you want with it. And that's all the steps in the Digital Dynamics Studio walkthrough tutorial. Hopefully it all makes sense and everybody was able to follow along. This is a very simple simulation of airflow past the cylinder, and there's lots of different kinds of simulations, lots of different applications that could be solved with Digital Dynamics Studio. So definitely review the documentation. And down here at the experiment section, we have all kinds of different suggested experiments that you can do with Digital Dynamics Studio, all kinds of different examples and problems that you can solve. So hopefully you enjoy it. Thanks for the attention on these walkthrough tutorials, and good luck. Thank you.